In this video, I will show that diversity is not necessarily a strength for your work team. It is not a silver bullet, it is not the magical answer to all of our problems. There are some situations where certain types of diversity may be useful, but let's not hype it up into something that it is not. You disagree with me? Watch this video. Empirical research shows that diversity is good for productivity. Empirical research shows that diversity is bad for productivity. So which one is it? If you run a company, do you want your staff to be diverse or homogeneous? Which one is better in your opinion, and why is that? In this video, let's take a closer look at the diversity-performance relationship. First, let's be clear about what diversity is. If you've got Americans, Chinese, and Germans working together in one team, that certainly is a pretty diverse team, and this diversity is likely visible. It is based on nationality. Now, another team is composed of only Americans, but some of them are young and others are old. Some are Republicans and others are Democrats. Some are religious and others are non-religious. Some are gay and others are straight. Some are introverted and others are extroverted. Some are married with children and others are happy singles. So the second team is also highly diverse, not in terms of nationality, but in terms of other important indicators. Consequently, when we talk about diversity, we need to differentiate among three kinds of diversity: surface level, deep level, and job-related. Surface level diversity would be things like age, gender, race, nationality, ethnicity. Job-related diversity would be differences in areas of expertise and function, professional history and background. And deep level diversity would refer to diversity in personality characters, values, and political beliefs or religious beliefs, things of that nature. As we will see later, these three types of diversity are related to satisfaction and productivity in different ways. This is because some teams can seem very diverse on the surface, but in fact involve much deep-level similarity, while other teams may seem to be very homogeneous on the surface, but are in fact highly diverse in terms of deep-level indicators. So this is the first thing we want to clarify, the three levels of diversity. Second, we also need to be clear about what we mean by work performance and how it can be measured. This is especially important if we want to make an empirical argument about when diversity is good or bad for work performance. Researchers distinguish work performance in terms of subjective and objective measurements. And subjective measures can be further subcategorized into employee self-reports or manager ratings. And these ratings can be gathered from either inside or outside the team. In other words, subjective performance ratings can be either internal or external. And the performance rater can be either blind to the team composition or they may know the level of diversity involved in the team. In fact, this knowing or not knowing about the team composition is an important consideration because rater bias is a key issue when it comes to diversity research. Objective measures of performance are more straightforward. They are, for example, sales volumes, production figures, or revenue numbers, things like that, things that can be directly and objectively measured and quantified in order to represent performance. So this is the second thing we want to take into consideration. How performance is measured in diversity research also matters. Third, in addition to measurement issues, we also need to take into account performance in terms of its nature. Specifically, research shows task complexity and innovation level to be of particular importance. This is due to an inherent argument associated with why diversity matters to task performance. Whether people are arguing for or against diversity, their arguments tend to boil down to the core notion that diversity is a rich informational resource. This informational resource can be very useful because it can enable the company to better understand the complex marketplace and customer demands, or it can be counterproductive because too much information and too many different perspectives can lead to substantial disagreements and conflicts. But the essential argument remains: diversity matters because it is an incredibly rich informational resource. So, given this line of thinking regarding diversity being an informational resource, it is logical to assume and to have found that task complexity and the extent to which task involves innovation and creativity would matter to the discussion of diversity and what kind of diversity is productive or not. And now, having clarified these three important aspects of the diversity-performance relationship, let's take a look at empirical findings. As I have indicated at the beginning of this video, on the surface, the findings from different empirical studies on the diversity-performance relationship appear to be wildly inconsistent. And the reason for this is exactly what we just talked about. One study may have measured surface-level diversity in relation to subjective employee self-report of performance, whereas another study may have measured deep-level diversity in relation to supervisor rating of employee work performance. So of course, their findings would have been different. It is logical that they have found different things and drawn different conclusions. As a result, instead of looking at any particular empirical studies, let's take a look at meta-analyses on the diversity-performance relationship, and there are multiple ones. Interestingly, the findings of these meta-analyses are also somewhat inconsistent. But for now, I believe I have found a rather definitive meta-analysis because it is the most recent one, it is also published in a highly respectable journal, and it incorporated all the empirical studies that the previous meta-analyses used and added additional ones. And most importantly, this article took into account everything we just talked about. Well, in fact, many of the things we just talked about are actually based on this article. So let's take a look at the most important findings of this meta-analytical study. I am just going to list out the most important findings, and you can pause at any time to read this more closely. Surface level diversity was found to be negatively related with subjectively measured performance, unrelated with objectively measured performance, and unrelated with complex tasks. Job-related diversity was found to positively relate with performance rated by external leaders, positively related with high complexity tasks, and unrelated with internally rated performance either by the team leader or by the team member. Deep level diversity was found to negatively relate with high complexity task performance. Furthermore, surface level diversity and job-related diversity clusters positively related with innovative performance, no relationship among studies examining diversity performance link focusing on in-row performance, job-related diversity more strongly and positively related with innovative performance than surface level diversity. So once again, please feel free to pause here and look at all these findings more closely. There are also additional findings that the study reported but are not included here. Now the most important question is, what are the key conclusions that this study drew? There are three of them. First, subjective self-report measures of performance are problematic. Some of the misperceptions we had with regard to diversity's effect on performance can in fact be attributed to the issue of subjective measures of performance. For instance, researchers have long held the opinion that surface-level diversity was actually bad for performance. That's not because previous meta-analytical findings were incorrect, but rather that's because of rater biases. When we separate out the sources of performance ratings like this Van Dijk et al. Study did, it became clear that surface-level diversity essentially had no bearing on objectively rated performance. All this indicates that objective performance ratings are more accurate, and when objective ratings are hard to come by, external performance ratings provided by individuals blind to the team composition are more reliable than performance raters who are aware of the team composition, as that has also been found to tend to bias the performance ratings. Second conclusion, with greater task complexity, job-related diversity, not surface-level diversity, is more beneficial for performance. This 2012 meta-analysis found task complexity to be a moderator for the diversity-performance relationship. This meta-analysis found that the only positive relationship with performance was for job-related diversity in complex tasks. And this is possibly because job-related diversity function as a rich informational resource, which is necessary and beneficial for complex tasks. The third conclusion, diversity is more positively related with innovative rather than in-row performance. This is also in line with the informational resources position in that the rich informational resources of diversity are particularly relevant for creative and innovative behaviors and processes at work. In fact, the diverse perspectives and opinions driven by all levels of diversity appear to be helpful for stimulating out-of-the-box thinking. However, it is important to note that diversity's effect on in-row performance is weaker in comparison to innovative performance. So once again, the most important takeaways: subjective performance ratings are likely to be biased, surface-level diversity has little bearing on performance, job-related diversity is the type of diversity which appears to be the most useful for complex and innovative performances, but not so much for in-row performance. Now, on a different but related subject, I made several other videos about team building. Many people seem to think that team building is magical, it is going to solve all team problems and increase performance. Well, that is not true, and the same goes for diversity. Diversity is not the magical answer to all team problems, it is not a silver bullet, but at the same time, it needs not be a problem as long as it is properly managed. Effective team performance depends on a large number of factors. No amount of diversity, or team building for that matter, can replace genuine talents and qualifications, strong motivation and desire for success, proper guidance, management, and leadership, as well as attractive compensation, rewards, and benefits. So, let's not hype diversity up into something it simply is not. This video discusses empirical and meta-analytical findings on the diversity-performance relationship. It is not to be taken out of the context. Diversity serves many greater values and purposes in organizations and societies other than improving task performances per se. This presentation specifically focused on the employee diversity-performance relationship in work organizations. Alright, thank you for watching this Ranywayz random video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.